Hormuz deal near. Kyiv missile strike. Tight race in Michigan. And Ebola toll surges. Greetings, humanity. Let's GROK the news. We cover the world's headlines, but first, a deep dive into the most important story in the world today. Dateline, Washington, D.C. U.S. President Donald Trump says talks with Iran are moving along very nicely, and a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz could come as early as today. Speaking last night on Fox News from California, Trump said American negotiators held an all-day session and predicted the vital waterway will reopen very soon. He warned that if Iran backs out again, it will get hit really hard. The Strait of Hormuz normally carries about one-fifth of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas shipments. It has been largely blocked for months amid the 5-month conflict between the United States and Iran. Shipping traffic remains steady but far below pre-conflict levels. Oil prices eased today on the news, with Brent crude slipping more than 1%. Asian stock markets gained, and Wall Street hit fresh records as investors bet on progress. Trump said the first phase of any agreement would reopen the strait. The second phase would address denuclearization. Axios reported this, citing regional sources and a U.S. official, that Washington aims for an announcement today. The emerging plan would let ships enter the Persian Gulf through an Iranian-controlled route and exit through an Omani-controlled route. Service fees would be charged for security and environmental protection, with revenue shared between Iran and Oman. This observer is dubious. Iran has demanded inbound control of the waterway and outbound oversight. Iranian state media, citing an informed source, says any agreement with Oman will be delayed as long as the United States continues to threaten Iran. Tehran has denied direct talks with Washington, insisting discussions are only with Oman. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghaei has described talks with Oman as positive and continuing. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that there is a chance of a Hormuz deal by Wednesday. Secretary of State Marco Rubio noted progress, but no finality as yet. Trump has repeatedly threatened massive strikes if talks fail, and then pointed to advances that have so far failed to end hostilities. A previous ceasefire memorandum signed in June collapsed after mutual accusations of violations, including attacks on commercial vessels and renewed U.S. sanctions. Oh, let's clear up this mutual accusation jargon. That's just news talk for both sides are saying the other side started it, whereas the entire world knows what Iran is doing over there and how they have ended every ceasefire by firing. New Zealand has blamed the waterway's closure for rising fuel costs, inflation, and its highest unemployment rate in a decade. Global energy markets have felt the pressure for months. Only a handful of commercial ships have braved the strait on some recent days, compared with roughly 130 daily before the conflict. Trump framed the current negotiations as Iran's last chance. He said the United States is prepared to respond strongly if Tehran walks away. Regional officials involved in the mediation say the proposal also calls for halting attacks across the region, including by Iranian-backed militias, in exchange for ending the U.S. naval blockade and allowing Iran to export oil. The possible agreement remains fragile. Iranian officials have insisted on maintaining a central role in governing the strait, viewing this as leverage gained during the war. Washington has rejected any permanent toll system that would give Tehran lasting authority over the global energy choke point. Oman continues to mediate, controlling part of the waterway and seeking a balanced arrangement. As of press time this morning, no formal announcements had been made. Trump's comments sent oil prices lower and lifted markets, but analysts note that previous rounds of optimism have faded quickly. The president is scheduled to speak later today in Las Vegas on economic issues, where the Hormuz situation could still factor into energy price discussions. Officials on all sides emphasize that any short-term reopening would be temporary, while the longer-term talks on nuclear limits and sanctions continue. The next hours will determine whether the latest diplomatic push succeeds or collapses into renewed military action. This observer would like to observe that every single ceasefire, every single so-called breakthrough, every single so-called agreement with Iran over the last 47 years has been broken by Iran. The fact that they are not even admitting that they are negotiating with the United States is a red flag to this observer. Of course, the oil prices are going to shoot up again. The president has mentioned how we are investigating the price gouging of the energy companies in their most profitable year ever. So the question remains, how long will this go on? Are these really negotiations? Really, the only negotiation point here should be the absolute surrender of the regime in Tehran. I'm Robert Gardner, using GROK each weekday to truthfully summarize the news. And of course, you're going to get my opinion as well. I hope you can tell the difference between the facts I present and the opinion I offer. We will review a roundup of the most critical reports in the world right after this. God with us. That's the story of Jesus. It blends the Gospels into one inspired narrative. It's divided into daily Bible studies, and this book presents the story of Jesus all the way from his birth to his ascension. You won't miss a thing. Find God with Us by me, Robert Gardner, at Amazon.com. Now, we grok the news with headlines from around the world. Dateline Kyiv, Ukraine. Russian forces launched a major overnight ballistic missile and drone strike on Kyiv and the surrounding region, killing at least 14 to 17 people and injuring dozens more. Ukrainian officials say warehouses and logistics sites were hit, sparking fires and an ammonia leak. Air defenses intercepted most drones, but none of the ballistic missiles. President Volodymyr Zelensky blamed delays in partner interceptor supplies. This observer only wishes that the most useless and preventable war in history will end soon. Dateline Detroit, Michigan. Progressive candidate Abdul El Sayed has held a narrow lead over establishment-backed Representative Haley Stevens in Michigan's Democratic Senate primary as of early this morning. The race remained too close to call. In Missouri, Representative Wesley Bell defeated former Representative Cori Bush in a Democratic rematch. Republican John James won Michigan's gubernatorial primary. Dateline Las Vegas. President Donald Trump is scheduled to speak this afternoon at Red Rock Resort in Las Vegas to promote tax relief proposals aimed at American workers. The address will focus on eliminating federal taxes on tips, Social Security benefits, and overtime pay. White House officials say the speech highlights recent economic initiatives for working families. Well, this observer certainly would welcome that. He worked for tips in his time. He's looking forward to his Social Security benefits earned over a lifetime and still gets overtime pay himself. That's a trifecta for this observer. Dateline Bunia, the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Ebola outbreak in eastern Congo has killed more than 1,700 people, making it the largest ever recorded in the country. The Bundibugyo strain has produced over 3,800 cases, mostly in the Ituri province. The World Health Organization is accelerating trials of experimental treatments and vaccines amid access and security challenges. It's difficult. The terrain is hostile, the region is at war, and the beliefs of the indigenous people there tend more toward witch doctors than modern medicine. Dateline Spokane, Washington. Authorities arrested 37-year-old Aaron Farinacci on suspicion of first-degree arson in the Old Trails fire that has destroyed hundreds of homes near Spokane. Witnesses reported seeing him near the ignition point with waterproof matches and a lighter. The blaze forced tens of thousands to evacuate and remains a top national fire priority. Individuals such as Farinacci, in my opinion, if convicted, should face life in prison without parole. They can't be trusted out in the world. Dateline Athens, Greece. Firefighters continue battling flare-ups from a major wildfire west of Athens that has burned more than 13,000 hectares and contributed to 5 deaths. International crews from France and Romania are assisting. Strong winds complicated efforts earlier this week as residents returned to assess damage to homes and farmland. This observer will mention once again, groom the forests, use controlled burns, take care of the forests, or they will burn, and you with them. Dateline, Ceuta, Spain. Most of the roughly 50,000 to 70,000 migrants who surged into the Spanish and North African enclave of Ceuta from Morocco last week have returned. Dozens died in the chaotic crossing. Spain and Morocco trade blame over a court ruling and trafficking networks, while a small group of holdouts remains on the beach. This wouldn't have happened if the presidents of Spain and the Spanish government had not given amnesty to the illegal migrants they've already entertained and invited. Dateline, Taipei, Taiwan. China continues expanded Coast Guard and survey vessel operations east of Taiwan and near contested features in the South China Sea. Western governments have raised alarms over threats to freedom of navigation. Taiwan and the Philippines reaffirm their sovereignty claims amid ongoing Chinese drills and patrols. Dayline, Tokyo. Japan's latest defense white paper highlights a sharp rise in Chinese military aircraft and naval activity around Taiwan. The report notes increased sorties, repeated drills, and growing blockade and strike capabilities as major regional security concerns for Tokyo. Dateline, Cali, Colombia. Colombia prepares for the inauguration of President-elect Abelardo de la Espriella on Friday in Cali. It's the first such ceremony outside Bogota. The conservative won a narrow June runoff against the leftist candidate and will succeed Gustavo Petro. International leaders are expected to attend. You will notice this is yet another South American nation that went conservative as soon as the USAID dollars were cut off from the Marxists. Dateline, Prahovo, Serbia. Record low water levels on the Danube River have exposed dozens of World War II Nazi ships scuttled near the Serbia-Romanian border. Some wrecks still contain munitions. The drought has stranded vessels, hurt fisheries, and forced Romania to shut down nuclear reactors that rely on the river for cooling. Dateline, Tokyo, Japan. 3 lions have died from suspected heat stroke at Tokyo's Tama Zoological Park. That's amid high humidity and temperatures. Other big cats remain under treatment. Zoo officials cited the extreme summer conditions affecting the animals. Well, it's hot in Africa, too, but that's a dry heat. Believe me, this observer can tell you, high humidity and high temperatures are nothing to fool around with. Dateline, Damascus, Syria. Israeli forces carried out renewed ground incursions and home raids in southern Syria's Daraa and Quneitra provinces. Syrian state media reported military vehicles searching villages and setting up temporary checkpoints. The operations continue a pattern of activity in the buffer zone area. This observer thinks that's good news. Dateline, Rome, Italy. Israel and Lebanon held a new round of United States-mediated talks in Rome focused on border issues, Hezbollah disarmament, and southern Lebanon security arrangements. Concurrently, Israeli defense forces have activity that have included strikes in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah leaders denounced the negotiations. As this observer has observed before, Hezbollah is the puppet of Iran, and you can expect that there's no point in negotiating with these extremist, militant Islamic jihadists. There is no negotiation with such as these. Dateline New Delhi. An Indian-flagged cargo vessel sank in the Red Sea off Yemen after being struck by a projectile. All 13 Indian crew members were rescued by the Yemeni Coast Guard and taken to the port of Mocha. India strongly condemned the unprovoked attack on the civilian ship. Dateline Geneva, Switzerland. The World Health Organization's Cancer Research Agency has classified 3 widely used medicines as Group 1 carcinogens. Hydrochlorothiazide, voriconazole, and tacrolimus are linked to skin cancers and lymphoma. Patients are advised not to stop treatment without consulting their doctors. Dateline New York, New York. United States stocks rallied to record highs as oil prices eased on hopes for progress in Middle East diplomacy. The S&P 500, the Dow, and NASDAQ all posted strong gains on solid corporate profits and reduced energy price fears. Asian markets followed this upward move. Dateline Los Angeles, California. Authorities arrested an armed man with ammunition near President Donald Trump's golf course in California after he was seen monitoring security. The incident prompted an investigation into potential threats. No further details on charges have been released. And finally, Dateline Pokhara, Nepal. Nepal's Gandaki province has legalized the farming and medical use of cannabis, despite a national ban. Farmers must obtain official permission and face close monitoring. The Himalayan province is known for tourism and cultural traditions involving the plant. This observer speculates, mere speculation on the part of this observer, that the tourism has a lot more to do with it than the headlines suggest. I thank you for listening. Please join me tomorrow to once again GROK the News. I'm Robert Gardner. Godspeed and God bless.